Well, hi again, everyone. It's Rob Ryder on Sunday, August 20th, 2023. Today we have veteran witnesses to Secret Service and County VA. And we're going to be relating the seemingly unrelated. Because while they don't necessarily have anything to do with each other, they had to do with the same person in the same week from these issues that are years old in different directions and all converging at the same time, where Dana, the veteran, ends up having a meeting with County VA, and while he's there, he's hearing that the county treasurer the night before had resigned at the county board meeting of a county commissioner meeting, resigned her office, and that a for sale sign that used to be in front of his house that had been taken for unjustly taken, by the way, for allegedly not paying his taxes. Well, the sign's no longer in front of the house. And then the week ended. So hey, no, waiting for next week, waiting for Monday, see what we're going to do next. But all these things were happening to Dana here this week, and it all happened, converged on Thursday, and it's just worth talking about, I believe. So let's go. I am Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rotluski, U.S. Army veteran, a.k.a. Rob Ryder. Email address is courtofrecord@aol.com. And YouTube is Rob Ryder, ROBBBRYDER. So now, if you happen to try the things I'm talking about today, and you have anything that happens, please contact me at my email address, right? So we can kind of push this envelope ahead. Well, push it ahead. There's no envelope to push. We just need to push the issue. We need to pierce the veil. And if we can use the Secret Service and the County VA to do it, well, then so be it. That's what we'll do, right? Where there's just tools to be used. So give me just a second. We'll get started here. Okay, so anyways, last week I had done a video called Veterans Control the County by Committee, where I was showing that in Michigan, and I'm sure it's in every state. In fact, it will be in every state, some form of whatever's happening. That at the county level, there is a Veterans Administration, Department of Veterans Administration or committee or whatever they want to call it, and that they have all sorts of powers that aren't being used, because they're in the government, right? So in Michigan, these veterans that sit on this committee are appointed by county commissioners. And there can be county commissioners or the veterans that can sit on the board. So it's supposed to have 3 to 7 members that sit on the board. And it's an administrative board, or an administrative committee. So basically, they're going to tell the worker bees what to do, right? So my point was, well, we should be going to this board committee and tell them this is my problem. I need you to have, this done for me. And if it's within the benefits that a veteran's supposed to have, then, they should be able to do it. So they're acting like your agent, basically, right? With the gold fringe flag jurisdiction. And, yeah. So, Kent County, where I'm at, has one, and I've tried to contact them, and, they hadn't contacted me back, and I'm sure that's because of, I wasn't very nice to them a few other times in the past, before I really knew what I know now, so. But at the same time, I started looking, and because Dana had recently lost his house to foreclosure, and he could be living in a cardboard box right now, but by the grace of God, he was able to find a place to live with a gentleman that not only let Dana move in, but his 13 dogs. Because up to that point, his 13 dogs had been taken to the pound. They were going to be euthanized. And it was a terrible situation. Well, that part had taken care of itself, but, Dana's still living in somebody else's house. And his house had a for sale sign on it. They took it in a foreclosure, and we had shown God knows how many different agencies of what was happening was a crime, and yet they didn't do anything. So anyway, so we're going to go to the county to try to the county Veterans Affairs office to try to get some of these things resolved. Starting with the fact that we need everybody to agree that hey, veterans are still in the military, and since we are, we need to have an ID card. Right. So we'll talk about that more later. But that's what the video is about. So, anyways, my county couldn't get a hold of anybody. Dana's County, look what they had. Kalkaska County Veterans Affairs Committee meeting scheduled. And they had a meeting on the 17th of August, which happened to be last Thursday. So on Monday, I'm writing Dana saying, Dana, you should get a hold of this place and see if you can get on the act, even though it's going to be Thursday. I just see what, not get on the act, get on the agenda, right? To be added to the agenda, please contact that number. Dana did, got on the agenda, was told to be there at 3 p.m. on Thursday, the 17th. So when Dana shows up, as they're getting ready to go, I don't know who these people are, and I can't say exactly who's who, so I don't want to use any names or offices or anything. But one of the persons apparently is also a member of the board, who was mentioning that the night before, Wednesday, at the board meeting for the county commissioners, right? Now we're talking county commissioners meeting, that the county treasurer resigned. Out of the blue, came in and resigned. Well, ain't that something? So, Dana started thinking, well, I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that, Dana contacted Secret Service on Monday also and was reporting what had happened to him and his foreclosure situation as the next place to contact after all these other places we contacted hadn't done anything. And, and all of a sudden on this Wednesday night, so he contacts Secret Service late Monday, and Wednesday night, the county treasurer resigns, and Friday, when he drove past his house, the for sale sign was no longer in front of the house. Again, this was taken, because of property tax issue. So, they don't have, the fact that he was at the veterans meeting has nothing to do with what the Secret Service did, but because of the relationship between somebody being on the board, also being on the veterans board and, talking, Dana being there because he had put himself on the agenda, hearing, he said, I wonder if that has anything to do with the Secret Service. And, that's what we're going to find out. But, so let's look at let's look at the Secret Service side first, then we'll go to what happened in the veterans meeting afterwards. So hang on a minute. Right, so in his tax foreclosure issue, just some of the places that we contacted to write a complaint was, I'm just looking at these now, TIGTA, which is the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. We contacted 911. We contacted the IRS. We contacted the state police. We contacted the Michigan Fraud Unit. Contacted the state rep. Contacted the sheriff. But we hadn't got around to contacting the Secret Service, which, what would they have to do with it? Well, as it turns out, right, that the Secret Service is a federal law enforcement under the Department of Homeland Security charged with conducting criminal investigations and protecting U.S. political leaders. As mandated by Congress, with two distinct and critical national security missions, protecting the nation's leaders and safeguarding the financial and critical infrastructure of the United States. Well, part of the whole thing with Dana and anybody else I tried to help with taxes before or such things is the fact that the people that want you to write these checks, and this goes for mortgages too now, or car payments or whatever it is, when they tell you pay, make your check pay to the order of and give you a name to put on the pay as the payee. Well, that payee, if it's for more than $600, you're supposed to give them or get from them a certification of what their tax identification number is. And that'd be on the Treasury Form W-9. right? Where the payee is going to certify this is my status, I'm tax exempt or I'm not, da 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 da, and this is my taxpayer ID number and blah 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 blah. Well, in Dana's case, and this would be for anybody's case, when you look at the tax bill, you're going to see that it says something like, pay the order of Kalkaska County Treasurer. Well, if you contact the Kalkaska County Treasurer and say, well, give me your W-9 form or fill out this W-9 to certify what your taxpayer ID number is, they can't do it. Well, I say that falls under this thing of safeguarding the financial and critical infrastructure of the United States. Right? Because the United States revenue comes from taxes. So if I pay those taxes to somebody, this payment, we call them taxes now, to somebody who doesn't have a TIN number, then I'm aiding in tax evasion. Right? Because the place I gave it to, they may say they're the government, but they don't have a TIN number, then they're not the government. Because, even political subdivisions have to have a TIN. Be it an EIN number, that's normally the one, the employer identification number. But what do you do if they don't have it? So that was the whole thing. Well, let's contact Secret Service. And so I told Dana, well, just something like this, Dana, because this was back in June. I had told Dana this. And he's now just doing it in August. And whether it's because we were working on the thing with the veterans thing or it came to his mind again, whatever, he decided to call Secret Service again because he had tried before. And didn't get a hold of anybody and didn't get a return call. And, all sorts of things that happened because of his situation where he moved way out in the boonies and doesn't have very good phone service or internet service or anything else. And, however, on Monday when he called, he actually talked to an agent. And he explained to him a little bit. And the guy said, well, send me something and we'll look into it. So basically what he had sent was, my full legal name is Dana Reed Smith, and I am reporting an incident that adversely affects the revenue and financial infrastructure of the United States by persons impersonating as elected public officers. I was being coerced by alleged county officers to make out a check in the name Kalkaska County Treasurer as the payee. But that payee refused to provide the Department of Treasury Form W-9, request for taxpayer identification number and certification, required to be provided by the payee to ensure the payor, right, that'd be Dana, that the payee, that would be Kalkaska County Treasurer, is registered with the Department of Treasury for tax purposes. Apparently, Kalkaska County Treasurer does not have a taxpayer identification number, and therefore cannot be an exempt payee as that term is defined for line 4 of the Form W-9, which we'll look at in just a second. So I refused to pay unless I was provided the properly executed W-9, causing the public officer impostors to simulate a legal process using counterfeited Michigan Department of Treasury forms, improper personal identification and property description to seize my property and then charge me for breaking and entering on my own land. I'm a U.S. Navy voluntary enlistee supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States, informing you of this offense against the United States, and respectfully demand that you investigate. Well, that sounds simple enough, and, apparently it worked. Now, Dana, he embellished this a little bit because he wanted to add some names of people that were also involved in it and so forth. But, at the end of the day, it got to them finally, and they did something with it. Or something happened. We don't even know if it's the Secret Service that did this yet. All we know is, all of a sudden, when Dana goes to his veterans meeting on Thursday, he's hearing, in one ear that the night before at the county commissioner meeting that the Kalkaska County Treasurer resigned. Well, why would they do that out of the blue? So just to show you real quick what's going on, because, if you own property, you may want to go find your tax bill, or this is a delinquent tax notice, but, they're going to have the same kind of information on them, the part that we need. And, if you've been foreclosed on, then you're going to have some kind of notice to show cause hearing, judicial foreclosure hearing. But you don't need to be this far in the process. All you need is a bill. right? Because on the bill, as you can see, they put your name backwards. Like this is, last name Dana R., which is not Dana Reed Smith's name. But that's the way they use it. And on this delinquency notice, what's the property address? Well, there isn't one on there. Right? There's no address. And it says, make your check or money order payable to Kalkaska County Treasurer. P.O. Box 2047, Kalkaska, Michigan. All right, so this is, hey, pay this or we're going to take your property. Well, if you don't pay that, eventually you're going to get one of these, that there's going to be a show cause hearing. And this is the form that's actually counterfeited. I really can't go through the whole thing right now to show it all, but, because it has that form number at the top, you can go to the Michigan website and or just put in, what did this say? It called it Michigan Department of Treasury Form 4264, right? Google that. You'll find out, well, it actually is supposed to look something like this. And it's supposed to have like recorded document type and date, where this just has, recorded document number. Doesn't say what type or what date, just got a number. And, you could just look at it and see, well, this doesn't look the same as this. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means they counterfeited the Michigan Department of Treasury form. That's what it means. Right? If this is how it's supposed to look and it looks like this, then whoever did this counterfeited the form. And so these were the things we pointed out to all those agencies I had just mentioned to you that didn't do a damn thing about it. But, we weren't quite done complaining yet, so be it. So then, just really quickly, it's just not at the county level, right? If you're going to pay the IRS, they're going to tell you that in one case, make your check or money order, cashier's payable to U.S. Treasury. But then you go down here and look at this, Form 1040V. It says make your check or money order payable to the United States Treasury. Well, they're not the same thing, right? U.S. is not the United States, right? U.S. is a abbreviation used when the Union had been dissolved, conflict, whatever, back in it's the Civil War term. All right, that the proper term is the United States. But in either case, well, if that's who they want to put down as the payee, then whoever that is has to be able to give you an EIN number. Because even the United States has to have a taxpayer ID number. It's the same for the state. If you got to pay your state taxes, make your check or money order to Michigan Department of Treasury. P.O. Box, something or other. So they want this whole thing, right? This whole thing should be on the pay the order of line. Okay, well, what's the EIN number for that thing? But even that, okay, what's the EIN number for Michigan Department of Treasury? Well, unless you ask, they're not going to tell you. Or if you just go ahead and write the check, they'll be happy to take it from you. But, we don't have to. We could complain about it. It was like, well, who do you complain about it? And because, this is the revenue of the United States, well, then you would think the IRS would be interested or Treasury would be interested. But they're not the only ones. That the oldest federal agency to deal with the financial issues is the Secret Service. Which, as it turns out, I just wonder if this may have had something to do with it. What did it say on here? President Abraham Lincoln signed the legislation April 14th, 1865, just a few hours before he was assassinated. I wonder if that had something to do with it. And in his assassination, he was, at the time, the presidents were being guarded by the Washington Municipal Police or some bullshit like that. And the guy that was supposed to be guarding the door had left his post and gone to the bar. And then Books just walked into, past the unguarded post. So, apparently there may have been some conflict between the fact that Lincoln was creating a investigative service to look into counterfeiting of U.S. currency Well, they said at the time that was, was quite a problem. So there you are. So then over time, this form, Form W-9, request for taxpayer identification number and certification, has been altered or changed, whatever the proper term is. And it just depends on what version you have. Like this one's from 2011. Because we've asked for these before from like the county. You call the county and tell the county, I'd like to have a copy of W-9. This is what they'd send you. Where it says the name is County of Kane. Well, then, if the name is County of Kane and they're the ones collecting taxes, why am I paying taxes to the Kane County Treasurer? That'd be a question to ask. And they didn't check the box to say they were exempt. And as we'll see, local governments are exempt. So why didn't they check the box? Apparently, they're not the government. Right? With an address and EIN number, name, so forth and so on. So that was one form. I had asked one for Kent County. It was County of Kent. Said it was the government, right? So this one says they're the local government. This one says that they're government, but they're not exempt. Well, the government's exempt, right? Why didn't they check the box? So this one's from 2007, so it's even an older revision. So in 2015, right, this lady filled this thing out. And this form isn't the same form that that they were even using. What did this say? This was like 2011. So they're handing out these forms that are generations old. Right, here was another one. Now this one changed. This is 2014. Right, we're Cook County government. Okay, now this is the name that's supposed to be on their returns. Because even though they don't pay taxes, they still have to do like information returns and stuff. It's the name that's tied to the TIN number, to the employer identification number, taxpayer ID, which is either a Social Security number or an employee identification number. So it says. They claim to be the local government, and they claimed exemption code 3, which that's closer to being right. You see, but now we got this box where you have to put something in, where over here before, just a box like this where they didn't check the box. So this is one of the changes they made. And, and this was done in 2015. So I had one from 2015 that looked like this. Here's one done in 2015 that looked like this, right, where they had to fill this box in. Well, here's the latest version, which looks a lot like the one from 2014. Right? And what I want to do is look at this, because this form is actually 6 pages long. Exemptions. Codes apply only to certain entities, not individuals. See instructions on page 3. So this is interesting because if you're exempt, the thing you're exempt from is the collection of withholding tax, which now is like 24%. So if you're not exempt from having withholding taxes withheld, then if I was writing you a check, I'm supposed to hold back 24%. The government, the IRS, has made you, the one writing the check, their collecting agent. And then you have these other forms you're supposed to fill out and send it into the IRS and so forth, which is far deeper than I want to get right now. It's like, oh, what's all that bullshit about? But basically, if you write somebody a check for more than $600 and you don't get their TIN number to fill out the paperwork to send to the IRS, then you're supposed to be collecting this 24% if they are not exempt. If you don't collect it, well, then you're aiding in their tax evasion. That's how we all become enemies of the state, of the United States. But anyways, let's go look. So let's go to page 3. 1, 2, here's page 3. So the following codes identify payees that are exempt from backup withholding. Right? Exempt from backup withholding. Not exempt from paying taxes of any kind, just from what backup withholding. The United States or any of its agencies or instrumentalities. A state, the District of Columbia, U.S. Commonwealth, possession of any other political subdivision or instrumentality. A corporation, a real estate investment trust, a financial institution. So, forgetting taxes for, let's talk about making a mortgage payment, right? You probably don't have a copy of your note, but on the note, it has the address on there where you were supposed to be sending your payments to. Well, the place you're sending payments to now isn't the same place that's on the note, first of all. Second of all, if you ask the place that you're sending the payments to for a W-9, they're not going to give you one. They're not going to even probably respond to you. They're going to ignore you and try to hide. But if they were a financial institution, they shouldn't have any problem doing it because, hey, we're exempt. Yeah, check here, put your number in here and continue on. You're a corporation, financial institution, whatever it is that makes them exempt from having to pay or having the withholding withheld from the check, the 24%. And none of that's happening. So all of these people then, all these places where you're sending checks to now that won't give you a frickin' properly filled out W-9 did not certify their tax exemption, and therefore it has to somehow affect the revenue of the United States, and that's what the Secret Service is involved in. Right, so now we didn't show all that stuff again to the IRS or to the Secret Service. We just wrote them and told them, right, that they wouldn't give us a W-9. Now, this was easy because it was supposed to be the county, so Kalkaska County. We didn't have to give them a lot of addresses and stuff. But, you could send them a copy of your bill or whatever it is you're talking about to the Secret Service. The problem we have with the Secret Service is they didn't have any email addresses to send anything to. All they give is you got to go to the Secret Service website and find your regional office and call them. Right, and tell them your issue. And, so if I was going to do it again now, I just call them, whoever answers, say, look, I want to report something to the agent. I need his email address. All right, and get it, and then send your information to him. And so there'll be more on this later. I'm just talking about now because it happened. But my point is, all of this stuff had happened, hearing this on Monday, and by Wednesday, the Kalkaska County Treasurer apparently resigned. Although when you go to the website, she's still on there. I mean, it hasn't changed anything yet, so I don't want to make more of it than it is. It'll all work itself out soon enough, but, it doesn't change the fact what Dana heard while he was standing in the veterans meeting, which is the thing we're going to talk about now. So again, this is the act for Michigan that created the County Department of Veterans Affairs. And if you take your county name and put whatever that is, Veterans Affairs, you're going to find something. I just looked for my brother-in-law down in Florida, Brevard County Veterans Affairs. They have an office. Now, it doesn't say exactly what these people can do, but, the fact that they're there and they're in the county, under the county's, website as the government, they're actually in the government. And it's supposed to have again, 3 to 7 veterans. Well, Dana got there. There's 9 people there. And they all said they were on the board. So we're going to have to figure out what that's about. But, luckily he had made numerous copies of what I gave him to give to the county members. So everybody got a copy. But the important thing for me on all this was this thing down here that a few things. That some of the things that they're supposed to do is establish remote access to the United States Department of Veterans Affairs computing systems. Right? So I should be able to go to the county VA office and say, I'd like to look at my, my records on the United States Department of Veterans Affairs system and them show me. Because if you go to, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs ain't going to show you anything. Very little, right? And I know the little bit that they showed me, I have errors in mine. It's like, well, I want to see what else is wrong and try to get it fixed. And the county veteran service officer has to have a PIV card. So this is an important thing to know. If to make sure you're talking to the person with the right power, they got to have a PIV card, which I don't have time to get into right now what all these things are, but it's just, it's a thing. And that this accredited veteran service officer has to be accredited under this United States Code, which is 38 U.S.C. 5904 and 38 CFR 14629, which is a whole different level of certification than it is if they're like from the American Legion, where an American Legion veteran service officer is your representative. But this service officer under 38 U.S.C. 5904 is an agent, which is a higher level than a representative. As a representative, they're just acting as you or representing you, but as an agent, they're doing business for you. Right? In the one case, they are you. In this case, it's somebody doing something for you. That's a big deal. And then County Department of Duties and Powers. The County Department of Veterans Affairs shall perform such duties and exercise such powers as shall be necessary in carrying out the provisions of this Act and any and all other benefits to which veterans may be entitled as prescribed by the County Department of Veterans Affairs. Right? Now, prescribed means ordered. So the County Department of Veterans Affairs can write an order and say that you are entitled to this, and then, things are supposed to happen, you should get it. So, as I say, well, what do you think you're entitled to? Well, if I'm still in the military, I'm entitled to an ID and I'm entitled to pay. That's on my, as an enlistee, that's on my DD Form 4 agreement. As long as I'm still in the military, I get to be paid benefits and allowances. And it's all, so I believe it's all being paid. It's just all being put in an account because there's these errors in our records, which is something that I've been talking about for quite some time in most recent videos. So this is what Dana brought in to his meeting on Thursday. Subject, defending the Constitution and petitioning the government for redress of grievances. Veterans Affairs Committee members, thank you for your service. Allow me to state the obvious. Voluntary enlistee members of the Armed Forces of the United States have a duty to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, bear true faith and allegiance to the same, ... according to the regulations and Uniform Code of Military Justice. I'm here today to do my duty and seek relief. Right? And so this is the important thing for enlistees, right? That we're supposed to do things according to regulations, by the book. So we get to pull the book out and say, well, this is what the book says. And they have to do it. If they don't do it, right, then they are the ones violating a regulation of the military, not us. Right? But we have to know enough to say, well, there's a regulation that covers this. Let me go read it and see what they're supposed to do and make sure they're doing it. And they're not. So there is a common misconception that a DD Form 214 is evidence that a service member has been discharged from the military. This is simply not true. And by reviewing specific military regulations, it's easily proven that veterans remain part of the Armed Forces of the United States. My DD Form 214 indicates I was released from active duty and transferred to the Naval Reserve. Lots of veterans have that. There is no indication of any kind I was discharged, separated from military service, and therefore my enlistment continues to this day. Both the Geneva Conventions and Department of Defense Law of War Manual require all military members be issued military identification, and I have not. This treaty violation is unconstitutional and must be corrected. Further, according to my DD Form 4 enlistment reenlistment document, Armed Forces of the United States, right? That's your enlistee agreement. As long as I remain an enlistee, I am entitled to pay allowances, benefits, all of which are now unjustly withheld. It's like in section 9 of that form. You want to go look at it. We're talking about if you're in, you're still entitled to pay allowances and benefits. Okay, well, he is still in. He's getting them, but they're being withheld. That must be what's happening. Right? I am also the victim of numerous simulated legal processes orchestrated by public officer impostors in Kalkaska County, Michigan, the most recent of which was misdemeanor charge under case number something or other relating to unjust taking of my premises under something or other for alleged tax delinquency in a proceeding that used counterfeited. Michigan Department Treasury forms, they required me to pay the order of to a person that could not provide me a completed IRS Form W-9 to certify the taxpayer identification as is required. So I'm writing all this stuff into here, not knowing that this what Dana's going to hear when he walks into the meeting. And, but one of the people on the Veterans Board was in the meeting, so he knew what happened. He's a county commissioner, and now we're putting the shit right back in his face again. And I think he got a little disgruntled in this meeting because of all the truth being told. I am protected by the UCMJ, which under Article 14 requires that under such regulations as the Secretary concerned may prescribe, a member of the armed forces accused of an offense against civil authority may be delivered upon request to the civil authority for trial. In other words, the civil authority has to contact the military and say, hey, please deliver him here for these reasons, da-da-da-da. There's paperwork goes back and forth. There's a paper trail, right? Well, that did not happen. And under 50 U.S.C. United States Code, Section 3931 of the Service Member Relief Act, my accuser is required to submit an affidavit stating whether or not the defendant is in military service. Finally, neither the alleged judge nor elected county officers involved in these malicious prosecutions executed the oath of office in 4 U.S.C. 101, as required by the Constitution. These unjust conditions resulted in my denial of due process, false imprisonment, and unjust seizure of my property. Be advised, I filed numerous complaints to various government agencies and the Camp Grayling commander about these situations without receiving any form of relief. The conditions I have brought to your attention are but a few of the injustices daily affecting veteran service members like you and dependents. We veterans must initiate the action that will end the injustice, and this committee has the power and authority to do that. 50 U.S.C., that should be 50, this has got 50 U.S. Code, but it's 50 U.S.C., Section 4012, Certificate of Service of the Service Members Civil Relief Act, mandates that prima facie evidence of military service is available by application to the Military Branch Secretary, and I ask this committee to apply on my behalf to the Secretary of the Navy for mine in order to determine my military service status, and for this committee to use that evidence to compel performance of my contract, my DD Form 4, restore my good name tarnished by false accusers, return my property, compensate my damages, and provide all other relief I'm entitled to as a member of the Armed Forces of the United States. Bada boom, bada bang. So there were a few laws that we talked about here. I'd just like to show what those are, just so we all always keep these things in mind. Right, first one is 4 U.S.C. 101, oath by members of the legislature and officers. Every member of a state legislature and every executive judicial officer of a state shall, before he proceeds to execute the duties of his office, take an oath in the following form. To wit, I state your name, do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States, which is the same oath that's in 1 Stat 23, the first law passed after the ratification of the Constitution. And because of this, right, because this is in the United States Code, if you go to the first section of the 6th article of the Constitution, where it talks about the laws of the United States and the treaties and so forth, are the supreme law of the land, then this is a supreme law of the land, and every judge must take, they can't deny it. They got to do what it says, and they didn't do it. And they have to do it before, right, they can exercise or execute the duties of their office. And it goes on to say that in 102, such oath may be administered by any person who, by the law of the state, is authorized to administer an oath of office. And person so administering such oath shall cause a record certificate, therefore, to be made in the same manner as by law of the state he is directed to record or certify the oath of office. So in other words, there's got to be a copy someplace to prove that the dude who's claiming to hold the office took the oath. If he doesn't have it, well, then they can't enforce the state law. This isn't that difficult. Okay, and so then under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, Article 14, delivery of offenders to civil authorities, under such regulations, the Secretary concerned may prescribe a member of the armed forces accused of an offense against the civil authority may be delivered upon request of the civil authority for trial. When delivery under this article is made to any civil authority of a person undergoing sentence for court-martial, the delivery of file by conviction, blah, 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 blah. But nevertheless, right, they had to ask for the military to deliver you. And this is why we need the military to say, hey, I'm in the military, boys. You guys got to, pay me, give me an ID card so that there's to acknowledge the fact that I'm still in the military so that the civil authority doesn't have any excuses anymore. And then it said, 50 USC, where the heck is it? Just a second here. Right, plaintiff to file affidavit in any action or proceeding covered by this section. So this is under the Service Members Relief Act. Before entering judgment for the plaintiff, shall require the plaintiff to file with the court an affidavit stating whether or not the defendant is in military service and showing necessary facts to support the affidavit, blah, 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 blah. Well, an affidavit is an oath rendered to writing. So I don't think they can do this under penalty of perjury. This isn't a declaration. This is an affidavit. And so they have to do it before somebody can administer an oath, which you're not doing. And then I talked about the certificate of service, which is in Title 50, United States Code 4012, right? This is prima facie evidence. In any proceeding under this chapter, a certificate signed by the Secretary concerned is a prima facie evidence as to any of the following facts stated in the certificate. That the person named is or is not, has been or has not been in military service. The time and place the person entered military service. Person's residence at the time of the person entered military service. Rank, branch, unit of military service of the person upon entry. Inclusion dates of the person's military service. The inclusive dates of the person. So in other words, you got an ending date yet or not? The monthly pay received by the person at the date of the certificate's issuance. And the time and place of the person's termination of or release from military service, not active duty, military service, big difference, or the person's death during military service. And here's another thing. Like, my dad has a DD-214. He was a Korean War vet, deceased now. But I don't think anybody ever told the Secretary of the Army that he's deceased. And so on his DD-214, it says he went on terminal leave. But it doesn't have any kind of order. Nobody has any kind of order to say they've ever been released from the military, from the custody and control of the military. It never happened. So the Secretary concerned shall furnish a certificate under subsection A upon receipt of an application for such certificate. A certificate appearing to be signed by the Secretary concerned is prima facie evidence of its contents and the signer's authority to issue it. Right? So it has to, in the signature block, then it has to be referencing the Secretary of the Army, Air Force, Navy, Space Coast, whoever it's going to be, Coast Guard. I don't know how all these people fall under, but whoever that is, they have a secretary that's responsible for them, and they're supposed to have done this. A service member who has been reported missing is presumed to continue in service until accounted for. I believe that's where we are. We're just missing somehow. A requirement under this chapter that begins or ends with the death of a service member does not begin or end until the service member's death is reported to or determined by the secretary concerned or by a court of competent jurisdiction. So I just believe that this is because we have to apply for this, and we're still under a wartime government, all the way back to Civil War. Civil War never ended in a way that satisfied the Lieber Code, and therefore the martial law continues. And under martial law, local government continues under the sanction of the military power, which is the United States military, which is what veterans are. And we're supposed to be keeping an eye on the local government through these county boards of veterans. And we'll see what happens. So, anyways, so all this happened on Thursday. And this all went down on Thursday. And Friday, the lady that's in charge, she's like the director of the county VA, has off, works 4 days a week, so we didn't hear anything. But, tomorrow we'll pick it up and find out what they're going to do to help Dana. Right? And we'll see if this is a viable option for us. And if it is, then if you're a veteran, you're going to want to make arrangements to talk to your county Veterans Affairs office. And if we can get enough of them, we're all starting without knowing anything about this whatsoever, right? So we got a little learning curve to get through. But with the power that this thing has, and then this act, and so the County Department of Veterans Affairs shall perform such duties and exercise such powers as shall be necessary in carrying out the provisions of this act and any and all other benefits to which veterans may be entitled as prescribed by County Department of Veterans Affairs. So I'm saying that the County Department of Veterans Affairs could go to the county commissioners and say, we need you to issue a subpoena to have the state judge advocate general come in and give us a lowdown on what this all means. Right? We need to be educated by JAG on what this means. Something like that. That they have all sorts. Not just you can have something. No, we can subpoena people. Right? They have the power to initiate a court case if necessary. Any and all other, whatever it takes to get you your benefits, they have the power to do. They can order it done. And if they order it done, then it has to be done because they're speaking as members of the military under the authority of the county, the Board of County Commissioners. So now whether they took the proper oath or not, the county commissioners, that's really not my fault. Whoever's there said, okay, we're doing it, put this together, put these guys in charge. And as veterans, we already took an oath. We don't need to take another one. We're still in the military. We're bound by our oath. We're not under civilian authority. We're under military authority. And we just need to have that reestablished, and we can solve all the problems in the United States through these county boards, and that'll take care of what's happening in D.C. by taking care of it locally first. Okay, very good. It was an interesting week, to say the least, and I went through the stuff kind of quick. Could all change by tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see what happens with what we thought we knew on Thursday. Okay, y'all have a great day, and I'll report back when I know more. See you now.